Gülpınar, there is a place that we're going to stop off, an old quarry. When I say quarry, I mean the Tarihi Antik Sütun Ocağı, which is near Yahyaçavuş Köyü, or Yahyaçavuş Village. It's an old quarry where they mined stone, granite in actual fact, and turned it into the columns that you see in many of the ancient sites. This was probably intended for Alexandria Troas, but the columns themselves never got used. Okay, so 3 kilometres further down the road, having passed through the village, there's a small track and the old quarry is well signposted. We arrive in this sort of a clearing with plenty of trees and big granite boulders, and we're going to just take a look around and go towards the actual site itself. Okay, so the first thing we see is the start of some of the columns. These are absolutely huge, big long stone columns made from granite, obviously. Must have taken absolutely years to make these, and these are the first two, and we'll see some others a bit further up. Okay, there's evidence of plinths and other things made from granite that they would have hewn out of the rock. Unfortunately, these are pretty weather worn. Okay, so just a couple of minutes walk down the track and we're actually here. So, this big chunk of rock here is the actual quarry. You can see the lines on the wall here where they've chopped away and chiseled away at the actual rock. Okay, so what have we got here? Looks like 7 really large columns. I mean, the strange thing is that they're just left here. After all the effort in making these, they never got to their destination. Whether there was an earthquake or some other reason, they were never utilised at all. Just getting these to their destination would have been a major feat. The sea, as you can see from here, is quite far away, and I would imagine that these pillars would have been destined for Alexandria Troas, which we do a separate video on. Decided to press on to Alexandria Troas, and we'll take a look about the ruins here and find out a little more about this archaeological site. So this is the forum at Alexandria Troas. Okay, this is a fairly extensive site and covers some 6 kilometres, 6 square kilometres, leads right back down to the sea where there is the Antik Liman, some sort of old stones and columns, but not much more to see there on the beach site. But this is the main site where the city would have been. Okay, the Podium Temple. The temple is located at the centre of the forum. From the surviving section, it is clear that the foundations of the temple were made of a mixture of stone and lime mortar, which was called opus cementitium technique. At the corner of the foundation in opus quadratum, sections ashlar blocks of shell limestone were used. The foundations are 16.6 metres wide, 23.65 metres long and 8 metres deep. The entrance facade of the temple is at the east side. All the architectural finds show that the temple architecture must have been the Corinthian order prostal temple type. The building is dated to the reign of Emperor Augustus. The rubble stone wall encircling the foundations of the temple. I have no idea how the quality of this video is going to come out. Normally I like to do the videos and then do the narrative afterwards when I've got home and spent some time researching. But we'll try this on the fly, see how it turns out. There's a lot of wind noise in the background, so we'll see when I get back whether or not this worked. Okay, when we first came here a few years back, you used to be able to walk around this bit, but for some reason they fenced this off at the moment. Perhaps they're doing some more work on it. You can see how far we are from the sea. The island in the distance is Bozcaada. All around this site there are just piles of stones and things that haven't really been pieced back together. The ancient city of Alexandria Troas is located in the region known as the Troas in antiquity. The ancient city was founded under the name of Antigoniea in 311 BC by one of Alexander the Great's commanders, Antigonus Monophaltmus. Antigoniea brought together populations from the small local settlements. This is known as Synochmus, I haven't pronounced that correctly, I know that, in antiquity. Lysimachus refounded the ancient city under the same name, Alexandria Troas, in 301 BC. The ancient city tended to develop during the Hellenistic period. The city had its most glorious phase with the period of the Roman Empire. The Romans founded colonial cities for retired soldiers on fertile soil and in depopulated areas of the Troas region. Under the rule of Emperor Augustus Alexandria Troas, a Roman colony, and the city was called Colonia Augusta Troas, or Colonia Augusta Trodensis. Clearly, Alexandria Troas was an important centre during the early Christian period. Yet very few remains datable to this period have been uncovered in the city. During the Christian period, the name of Alexandria Troas appears in some documents relating to the history of Christianity. The ancient city is referred to as Pionius Castrodensis at the Council of Chalcedon held in 451 AD, as Pionis Trodis in a letter written to the Emperor Leo in 458 AD, and as Leonetius Trodus at the Council of Nicene held in 787 AD. We've still not determined precisely when and why the city was abandoned. Alexandria Troas continued to be inhabited in the late Antique and Byzantine era. The ancient city was used as a quarry in the 16th and 17th centuries. Building blocks removed from ancient cities were carried to nearby modern settlements and Istanbul, and they were used in the construction of the mosques as spolia. The first systematic archaeological research at Alexandria Troas commenced with surveys in 1993, and these are still continuing. Okay, there's not a lot left of the Nymphaeum, but we'll take a look at it anyway. This whole area has structures similar to this, so we're not going to cover them all. We're just covering the main ones that are near the road and the more impressive ones. The Nymphaeum is located approximately 40 metres south of the Herodes Atticus Bath Gymnasium complex just across the road. The Nymphaeum is built of shell limestone blocks. Most of the marble cladding and other features have disappeared. The main facade of the building is on the west side facing the sea. The plan of the Nymphaeum is 18 by 17 metres rectangle, inside which is a structure with a semicircle aspidal plan and a radius of 6 metres. From the surviving section, it appears that the walls of the fountain are made of opus cementitium. The construction of the Alexandria Troas Nymphaeum is of a semicircular type. The comparison of the fountain with similar examples shows that the Nymphaeum was completed around the middle of the 2nd century. Okay, and now on to the baths of Herodes Atticus. Okay, so we know it was 1993 before this very valuable historical site was looked at in any great detail. It had been left to ruin for quite some time. This sign now says that if you cause damage to this site or take away any of the property here, you get between 2 and 5 years jail sentence. There's also a fine involved here too. The Baths of Herodes Atticus is one of the largest buildings at Alexandria Troas and located 500 metres east of the forum that we saw earlier. Reports by 18th and 19th century travellers give us information about the ruined parts of the baths. The central section of the Herodes Atticus Baths and Gymnasium was demolished in an earthquake in the winter of 1809 to 1810. The surviving walls of the building, which are built of shell limestone blocks, can be seen today. The bath block at the centre is surrounded by corridors. The baths of Herodes Atticus and Gymnasium had walls clad with marble slabs and surmounted by arches. The square central room was surrounded by arches. From the plan type of the building, we might expect to find the various sections from Fridarium, the cold bathroom, to Caldarium, the hot bathroom, arranged around this central room. The bath measures approximately 123 by 84 metres, making this building one of the largest in Anatolia. Technical similarities to buildings like the Odeon of the Herodes Atticus in Athens and details like the marble cladding and workmanship suggest that the building was constructed around 135 AD. Okay, the arches here were in danger of collapsing. A couple of years ago I took some photos of these that didn't have the metal structures supporting them. The limestone used still has shells of various creatures from the sea embedded in the actual rock of a lot of these stones used in the construction. Unfortunately, the steel supports do kind of ruin what it would have looked like without them, but it's an essential part of making sure that they don't deteriorate any further. Okay, so here we are at the Antik Liman, the antique harbour. Okay, this whole area is scattered with stones and artifacts, well, not artifacts, but parts of what would have been buildings in the ancient times. The harbour here would have been an extension of Alexandria Troas, the place we were just at, and unfortunately there's not an awful lot left. It's been battered by weather and stones have been taken away and used elsewhere, but the remnants of what it used to be are still here. Right along this stretch of the beach there are foundations of walls and columns and all sorts of things. We're right by Dalian Village, which was covered in a previous video. So you park in Dalian Village, walk past the beach area, and it leads you to this. Just off the beach here there's a salt lake. Well, it's dry at the moment, but behind that there's another lake, medium-sized lake, which actually is a salt lake. Salt deposits tend to be seen more in July, August, rather than this time of the year. We're in October now. Okay, you can see the columns sticking out of the water here. Probably part of some temple or grand building in its heyday. It is such a shame that there's not much left other than very, very old stones that have been battered by the weather. But to think that this site, this area, Alexandria Troas, once vied for position with the likes of Istanbul. In fact, the Greeks actually named it Eski Istanbul, Old Istanbul. People often stop at the stone pillars we saw earlier and they think that's it, that's everything there is to see. But actually along this stretch of beach here there are sunken plinths and stones and columns, albeit many of them deep in the water, but evidence exists for about 400 or 500 meters down this beach. Okay, I don't know if you can see this properly, but there are a lot of stones here. They're very flat. They would have been plinths or fascia for the buildings. All under the seawater, unfortunately. see a well-worn column, granite polished smoothly by the waves. You get quite a few scuba divers along here as well. No doubt they can see a lot more than we can see. So this is the Salt Lake. You can see evidence all around the shores of parts of what would once have been the port area. Such a shame that over the centuries all the stone from Alexandria Troas and this area has all been pillaged and reused for buildings elsewhere. Real excavation of Alexandria Troas hasn't even begun, really. Let's hope that with a bit of effort they can restore some of the buildings. And that's it. That concludes our tour of Alexandria Troas and the antique harbour. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to give us a heads up, and why not subscribe?